So today we're diving into the mind of a philosopher who was, well, brilliant, definitely difficult, and just endlessly quotable, Søren Kierkegaard. This was a guy who spent his whole life wrestling with the biggest questions out there. The ones about human existence. And honestly, what he had to say feels more relevant right now than ever before.
And let's just jump right in with one of his most famous lines. Seriously, this one sentence just nails the central tension of all his work. It's this crazy paradox, right? We're these creatures who can look back and understand the past, but we have to live our lives moving forward into a future that's a total blank.
So who was the guy behind these words? I mean, he was described as a philosopher who could write like an angel, just beautiful stuff. But at the same time, he was the guy who said, "My grief is my castle." So you've got this thinker who's defined by this incredible intellect on one hand, and this really deep, profound sadness on the other.
Okay, and here, this is a look right into his world. That's his actual handwriting. It makes it feel a bit more real, doesn't it? But here's something wild. His name, Kierkegaard, literally translates from Danish to churchyard. I mean, how fitting is that? You could almost say it was fate for a thinker who was so completely obsessed with faith and death and what comes next.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's really look at the man behind these quotes. So Søren Kierkegaard, he lived in Copenhagen his whole life, from 1813 to 1855. And what's funny is, he almost never called himself a philosopher. But today he's pretty much universally known as the father of existentialism. That whole school of thought that puts you, the individual, with all your freedom and all your responsibility, smack dab in the center of everything. But here's the thing. He was super critical of the philosophy of his day. He had this amazing line, "Spiritually, a man's thoughts must be the building in which he lives." He looked around at all these other big-shot thinkers and saw guys who were building these incredible, magnificent palaces of ideas, but then they were just living in a little shack next door. They weren't actually living inside their own philosophies.
And that observation led him to a pretty powerful diagnosis of the world he was living in. He saw a world that was suffering from, well, a profound lack of what he called inwardness.
And this really breaks down the core problem he saw. On one side, you've got inwardness. That's a rich inner life, a truth that you actually build your life around. And on the other side, chatter. Just noise. Memorized lines, ideas you repeat without them ever really meaning anything to you. He really believed his whole society was just drowning in all this chatter.
He thought this lack of an inner life was literally turning people into machines. I mean, listen to how he put it. Man qualified as spiritless has become a talking machine. Just a machine that can repeat political slogans or philosophical jargon or a confession of faith without any of it actually connecting to who they are inside. I don't know about you, but that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
So, how in the world do you wake people up from that kind of sleep? Well, it's not by giving them another boring lecture, that's for sure. No, Kierkegaard's solution was to become a kind of philosopher in disguise.
He had this strategy he called indirect communication, and it's brilliant. See, instead of just spelling out the answers for you, he used irony, stories, all these different characters, to basically force you, the reader, to do the heavy lifting. The goal was to make you engage personally, to confront the ideas yourself and find a truth that was yours. It was such a clever, almost sneaky way to do philosophy.
And these were some of his alter egos. These weren't just pen names, okay? Each one was a totally distinct author with their own personality and point of view. You had Johannes de Silentio, who gave us Fear and Trembling. Vigilius Hafnicians, who wrote The Concept of Anxiety. And then there's Anticlimacus, the author of The Sickness Unto Death. The man literally created a whole cast of fictional thinkers just to get his ideas across.
Okay, so he's diagnosed the problem, he's got his method, but what's the actual prescription for this spiritual sickness? For Kierkegaard, it all comes down to the self. See, yourself isn't something you're just born with. It's not a thing you have. It's a task. It's something you have to actively build and become over your entire life. And one of the most important tools you have for this task? Anxiety. Now hold on, because I know we think of anxiety as this horrible thing we need to get rid of, to cure. But for Kierkegaard, no way. Anxiety is a teacher. He called it the palm print of spirit. It's that dizzying, terrifying feeling you get when it finally hits you that you are completely, totally, scarily free to choose who you're going to be. The opposite of embracing that freedom, well, that's despair. And this quote just nails it. He paints this picture of a guy whose motto is either Caesar or nothing. And when he doesn't become Caesar, he just falls apart. He despairs. But here's the key. He's not despairing because he lost the job. He's despairing because he literally cannot stand being the version of himself that isn't Caesar. He tied his entire identity, his whole self, to this one external thing. So what's the cure for that kind of despair? It's something Kierkegaard called earnestness. And this is the goal. This is the whole point. It's about cultivating a self that doesn't need to be Caesar, a self that's rooted in something way deeper, something inside you that the world can't touch, it can't give it to you, and it can't take it away. That's the ultimate prize he thought we should all be fighting for.
And all of this, the chatter, the disguises, the anxiety, the despair, it all builds to what Kierkegaard thought was the single most important question in life.
He basically argued that the truths that really matter, the ones that actually shape who you are, they aren't objective facts you can just look up. They're not in a textbook. They are these deeply personal commitments, choices that you have to make for yourself, often going beyond pure logic. And that's his famous leap of faith.
And he laid this whole mission out so perfectly in his own private journal. I mean, this wasn't for a book, this was just for him. He wrote, "What I really need is to be clear about what I am to do, not what I must know. The thing is to find a truth which is truth for me, to find the idea for which I'm willing to live and die. It's all about action and a truth that is yours and yours alone."
You see, for him, this wasn't some abstract philosophical puzzle. It was a real, urgent, personal quest. And in the end, after laying it all out, he basically turns that quest over to us. He found his idea, and the question that he leaves just hanging in the air for every single one of us is, what's yours?